Hey y'all. Still a nice rainy day over here in Pasadena, California. Um, got this little thing fixed up again. Hey, I wanted to do the other half of the lesson for today. The first little video, bear with me, I'm still kind of experimenting with different things. Friday I've got a whole new setup coming in where I'll be able to stream with like 10 times the power of my current capabilities and be able to do a lot of camera switching and much better, cleaner stuff. I'm still kind of playing around. So you're literally hanging over my shoulder as I'm drawing on a table right now. But we got a lot of things coming up. Okay, so real quick, I wanted to talk today about shading, shadowing. You know, that's something that after you do contour line, after you do all the other things in order to create form in something, really helps create volume in a drawing. So I'm just using a regular white piece of paper because this is the way I used to draw when I was a kid, as I always say. And I encourage you to do the same. Just pick up a regular number 2 pencil and a white piece of paper, piece of paper from your Xerox machine or something, and kind of play around with me here for a moment. You know, you'll learn in drawing that they always tell you that everything that you try to draw, especially when you start drawing from your head, is based on basic shapes. You can break them down. We have a circle. We have a cone. And we have a geometric shape, usually what we call a cube, or it can be a rectangle, or it can be other polygons, but loosely sketched, we're going to do a cube. So again, I haven't gotten into formal perspective how to construct things yet. I'm kind of doing that purposely for right now. I want you to work intuitively. If you've never drawn a cube before, which is could be a little challenging for you, try the best you can for this exercise right now. Basically, you know, one way to do a real simple cube is start with a kind of diamond shape. Make a diamond going in this direction. Join the 3 front edges like this. Then make a line on the bottom that's parallel to the line on this side, and a line that's parallel or the same angle and direction on that side. That's one way of making a cube-like form. Let's call it just a polygon. It doesn't have to be a perfect cube. As long as it comes out to be a box of some sort, it'll still do. Keep it loose. Don't worry if you got 5 lines that kind of fly around a little bit. You want the basic feel to just be right there. So when you light these basic forms, when you learn, you always have to choose a light source in your mind. My favorite light source usually comes from above and to the left, but it doesn't really matter. It'll change all the time. So usually when you first start to draw, you want to think, where's your light coming from? It also can change if you want to get a little more complicated, like we did with the things. You can draw an arrow like this that says, well, it's not only coming from this side, but it's also coming towards us, and you know, you can vary that in many different ways. Could also be coming in this direction, which would mean that the light is coming over our shoulder and to this direction. But for now, let's just choose the light in our paper is coming from here. Oh, I just got a warning that my, sorry, I didn't anticipate this. My phone is on low. Bear with me 1 second. Gosh. Why would that be? Put the phone plugged in there. Okay. Not exactly sure why my battery is low. Oh, damn camera. Well, we're just going to keep going here. Sorry about that. Until it kills me. So in order to light these different forms, we start to say, okay, first one, hey, Desiree's on, and David Wu, Monica, and Craig Durbin. So anyway, first thing we're going to do is decide that from our light source, what's going to be shaded. Shading refers to the term where the light doesn't strike on a form. It's the opposite side of the lit side. It's not a shadow. A shadow is something that happens where a form blocks the light. You'll see a shadow on the ground or a shadow on other forms from one form. We're talking about shading. So use the side of your pencil on this. It's kind of fun to do. A circle, for example, a sphere, not a circle. Usually what you do is you make a crescent. Take the side of your pencil, you can smear with your finger, and when light hits the side of a sphere, it will tend to make this sort of crescent-shaped shadow. What also happens is that when you think about where your rays of light are coming down, here's where they miss and they come down to either side. This is stuff you just think about. What happens in the world, usually, in most cases, is that the ground that this sphere is on, assuming it's on the ground, even though we kind of cheat this effect sometimes as artists, when it comes to the ground or hits other atmospheric conditions, light actually bounces back into the shadow side a little bit. It also, at this point here, when we're turning from light to dark, there comes a point just after this point here where the light that's bouncing back a little bit into the shadow and the main light that's coming, is completely absent, and we call that the core shadow. And you'll see a lot of artists, comic book artists, other people, and you do this side of your pencil real soft, gets a little darker towards the highest area, and a little softer as it goes around. And you don't want this to be hard edge, you want it to just be kind of soft. This is called the core shadow. And you see how this area here that's a little bit lighter than the core shadow is the shadow side, but it is also where a little bit of secondary ambient light is bouncing, either off the ground or off of the atmosphere. And you'll see this happen real subtly in nature when you look. If you actually look, it's super subtle. But as an artist, if you exaggerate this, you really get the sense of 3D on this sphere. You can even, to exaggerate it, you can even make your line work lighter on the light side, be a little bit softer, and a little bit darker on the dark side. So when it comes to a cone, well, we have some of the same principles happening. We'll lightly shade, since our light is coming from this direction, we're going to put a light shading on this side. The reason I'm having a little bit of trouble here is because I'm trying to keep my fingers away from, my arm away from the tripod that I'm using. We have a core shadow. That comes down this form right about there. Here's the left and right side. This is kind of fun because right now it's so amateurish. It reminds me of when I made 8mm movies as a kid. It'll get better, I promise. Pay attention to the content. So see, we still have this core shadow here. We still have the dark side. We still have that little, area that's lighter on there, on that side that represents the light bouncing back into the side of our shadow. Then we have our cube that we have here. I'll move it right over here a little bit. Well, since our light is coming from the left and down, it is reasonable to say that the top of this is going to be the lightest. It receives the most light. The side furthest away on the left, since it's coming from the right, the light source, would be our darker side. So let's just go in and for now just give that a full tone, and I don't have it exactly even, but that's okay. We get the idea. We're just sketching, and you can do it with some lines too like that if you want. Just try to make a somewhat even tone on the dark side. And then we have, that's right, Desiree, keeping it loose is a good idea in all areas of life. And believe me, I am a major advocate of that. Then we have our side that is still away from the main light source, but not quite as dark, because this side, again, is the furthest away. Since this is left to right, this side is the furthest to the left, and it'll be the darker. We have a secondary side, which is second darkest, and then we have our light side on top. Now you can get fancy later on with this, and some artists will play around with actually making one edge of this get darker to light, and this one get lighter to dark. You can do all that too, but that's later on. Right now we're just starting with basic principles. So if this is how you light your main forms, your circles, your cones, and your polygons and squares, you can start to break things down even more in life. Like, let's say, for example, even though I'm not a big bowler, let's take and draw a reasonably simple bowling pin. Okay? Let's start with the outline of a bowling pin. I haven't bowled in a while, so I got to remember what a bowling pin looks like. And I'm also trying to keep this in the lines of the video. Maybe it looks something like this. Okay, that's reasonable. How did I get the bottom of the bowling pin? Well, remember our ellipses on the last lesson? It's basically a circle that's on the bottom. We don't see the other side because it's a bowling pin made out of wood. We only see the front side. So you're only picking up the front side of that ellipse. This side gets erased. So this is kind of a combination of shapes, right? Oh, I forgot the cylinder. I'm sorry. You know what? Bad me. The last shape is a cylinder. That's an ellipse on the top, an ellipse on the bottom that you only draw the bottom front edge of when you draw a cylinder. Cylinder is like every glass of water or a pipe. Dark side and a light side, and then our core shadow in the middle of that cylinder, right? Like this. Nice flat, or nice even core shadow. And there's our light and dark side. And what you can do too, if this is receiving the most light, later on we'll get into even more subtle things. What we could even do here, if we were working on tone paper, or a brown bag or something like that, we could even, I can even show you how to do highlighting. We'll get into that later. Right now, keep that in mind. So there's a cylinder with a core shadow. So this form, bowling pin, is made up of part of a circle. It's got a modified cylinder here. It kind of turns here. So one thing you can do real lightly is use the side of your pencil and try to figure out where those core shadows might be. This is an interesting thing that a lot of artists do. They really use that core shadow as a gimmick to get three-dimension right away. Real light, it's going to come up here. It's going to probably come up here like this. Come on down. Curve down again. Okay, real light, we have that core shadow. We know a core shadow is where the reflected light and the main light is being blocked out. Even though it's called a core shadow, and I should go back and correct myself a little bit, we're talking about shading, and the word shadow and shading get cross-used a lot by artists and teachers and things like that. The term core shadow is in fact a form type of shading or shadow as opposed to a cast shadow. But the act of what we're doing is called shading, which means dealing with light to shade a form. Hope that's not too confusing. Oh, Charlie likes that one. Okay, so my parrot giving approval. Charlie, you're made up of all these same shapes with feathers. Now we can go back and harden our lines up a little bit. Remember on this side, remember I said since this is the light side, I'm kind of teaching you a little trick. You might want to leave your lines a little lighter on the light side. And then on the dark side, you can get keep your lines a little bolder. Now, let's use our contour line. What we've learned, remember, it's just wrapping tape around something. And here, let's say we're kind of looking down at this bowling pin and the tape goes around here and here. And here would be where, let's say, a band of paint would be. And since the paint is on the bowling pin, this weird bowling pin, where the core shadow is, we're going to get just a little bit darker than our bowling pin color, which would be white or light wood, just to reinforce that core shadow and say that this paint, too, is a different color than the main color of our form. So you can kind of see how that works. The core shadows work really well, and you'll see a lot of this happening in comic book art and in a lot of different other sources. Some artists, actually you'll see some really good ink artists and guys who do great black and white cartoons and things like that. They'll sometimes use this core shadow alone just to make a form have dimension. They'll do something like this. Or in line, they'll do something like, doggone it, like this. They'll do a line like this, maybe some lines coming off of it like that. And they'll leave this area totally white. This will get really dark. You'll see this, again, cartoonists, tattoo artists, they'll use this abbreviation which comes from the reality of a core shadow and reflected light on something, but it's being highly stylized in the form of a black and white sketch. So these forms are something you should practice. And again, Charlie, what's wrong? You know, no matter what you're trying to draw, again, play around with different forms. You know, if this were an apple, for example, let's say an apple is going to be slightly different in its shape. But really, it's part of the same family as a sphere. It's got a light side. Charlie, that's the most annoying noise you can make. Will you stop it? It's got a core shadow, a light side and a dark side. Now, here we have a little change because our light is coming from this side, right? Well, this little indentation on the top of the apple is going to collect a little bit of shadow there. So we're going to indicate that. Use your finger if you're not afraid to be dirty like me. And we're not going to worry too much about the stem. Let's use darker line on the dark side of the apple. Let's just let the line almost vanish right up here on the light side. And look at the volume you can get. And that's just indicating something. You know, that's just saying, hey, I'm talking about an apple for something, for a design, and I need to get to the quick sketch I can to show an apple to somebody because I want to talk about a product, you know, or something, or I just want to talk about a story about an apple. So that just took me just a minute or so to draw that apple, and if you were to get very close to what that drawing looks like, it would fall apart pretty fast as I raise this up. As you see, the closer we get, if you were to just see the strokes I put on there, it looks like a mess. But as you step further away, that starts to take dimension, and because the strokes are in the right place of indicating, you know, 3 dimension. Charlie, knock it off. He's irritated because the dog across the street is not paying attention to him. He's looking out the window. Okay. Now, then the last thing is cast shadow. Let's go back to this again. You can get really complicated with cast shadow, but we're going to make it simple for now. If the light is coming from the left side of this circle, think of the lights. Charlie, knock it off. I'm live on air. What are you trying to do? Censorship me? The light is going to come down here like this and block. It's going to be blocked by the edges of our circle, and it's going to cast a shadow that's pretty much like an ellipse or a circle on the bottom surface of the ground, assuming this is flat ground. A cone that has a dark side and a light side, when that left-right light hits it, thanks, Charlie, you're going to get a cone shape cast shadow coming off that, of course. The cube becomes a little more complicated, and we can go into endless time later talking about the principles of perspective. But for now, here I'm drawing a simple cube. Remember, start with a diamond shape. For now, keep it easy, kind of an isometric cube. What happens again if the light's coming from this side? It's going to strike all these points. Just fake it. For now, I would say just kind of fake this. You know it's going to have multi-corners on it from striking these different sides. And for now, rather than projecting, we can actually project, theoretically, the exact corners of this if we were to get an anatomically correct shadow, and it would do something different than where I'm faking it here. But for now, just know you're going to have a multi-cornered shadow space. And in most cases, when you're just doing quick sketches, you can get away with that, and people are not going to ask too many questions unless they're, an artist who's real anal about shade and shadows. So, this apple, well, hey, it's probably an apple-ish shaped shadow. Maybe it's going to come down here. Maybe you'll see a little bit of the stem. Other thing you can do too when you lay in a flat shadow on the side of your pencil, one little trick is if you get darker, the closer you get here, and let it get lighter as you get further away. For now, we'll get into whole other things about shadows. Darker and more hard-edged, the closer you are. And then as you get out, let your lines disappear and get lighter with your shading, a little softer. You get an even more realistic looking shadow there for those forms. So that's a really very, very quick lesson in forms, in shading, shadow, cast shadow, to just get you started. Use your intuition. Again, part of these little lessons are, it would be like a musician teaching guitar by skipping a lot of basic information, but going straight to some fundamentals that can help you get interested in playing the instrument, or in this case in drawing, and start to use your intuition. You'll know when something doesn't look right. And if you keep drawing it, keep playing with it and adjusting it, it'll eventually be very close to what you'll say, hey, that's it. Okay, I got it, I think. Okay? Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this other little impromptu lesson. I'm going to go right now and put Charlie under a bell jar for for the rest of the day. So excuse me for now. Have a great day. It's raining. Grab some paper and draw. Take care.